Captain Hyun Tae-sik stood at attention in his dress blue uniform, watching the alien creatures debate humanity's future. The Galactic Council chamber was massive, filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like floating clouds of gas. But they all had one thing in common. They were all wrong about humans. Ambassador Choi Nari stood at the speaker's platform, her voice calm and diplomatic. She had been talking for almost an hour, explaining why Earth wanted to join the Council. Hyun admired her patience, but he could feel tension building in his jaw. Every word she spoke seemed to make things worse. Humanity has learned from our violent past, Choi said, reading from her prepared statement. We have put aside our weapons and embraced peace. We seek only to join this great community as partners in prosperity. The council speaker, a tall creature called Vexthar, nodded his large head. He had been studying humanity for months, or so he claimed. His species had watched Earth's broadcasts, studied human culture, and reached their conclusions. Hyun knew exactly what those conclusions were, and they made his blood boil. The humans are indeed a peaceful species, Vexthar announced to the council. Our observations are clear. They fear conflict. They avoid violence whenever possible. They have even created global movements dedicated to ending war. Several council members made sounds of approval. A creature that looked like a blue jellyfish rippled with happiness. Another alien, covered in silver feathers, chirped something that the translator rendered as agreement. But not everyone was pleased. From the warrior section of the council, a massive reptilian creature stood up. His name was Throck, and he belonged to the Krelthar species. The Krelthar were known throughout the galaxy as raiders and fighters. They respected strength and nothing else. Peaceful. Throck's voice was like grinding rocks. You mean weak. These humans have soft bodies and no natural weapons. They cry over violence in their entertainment. They protest war. They are prey, nothing more. Hyun's hands clenched behind his back. He wanted to speak, wanted to correct every wrong assumption, but he had his orders. Ambassador Choi had been clear. Let her handle the diplomacy. Don't make waves. Show the galaxy that humans could be civilized. Choi responded to Throck with practiced calm. We prefer dialogue to destruction, yes. Is that not the way of the council? Are we not here to build peace among the stars? Peace is built on strength, Throck growled. The strong protect. The weak hide. Which are you, human? Before Choi could answer, Vexthar intervened. Enough. The Krelthar warrior makes his point poorly. But the question stands. Humanity. How will you contribute to council security if you fear combat? Choi paused. Hyun could see her choosing her words carefully. We will contribute through other means. Technology, resources, cultural exchange. There are many ways to serve the greater good. The council debated for another hour. Hyun listened to aliens who had never met a Marine discuss human military capability. They talked about human movies and how people cried at sad stories. They mentioned peace protests and anti-war movements. They noted that Earth had not fought a major planetary war in decades. They saw what they wanted to see. They had decided humans were harmless and nothing would change their minds. Not today, anyway. Finally, the vote came. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. But they would be classified as a non-combatant species under the Peaceful Species Protection Act. Earth would be defended by others. Humans would not be called upon to fight. Hyun watched Choi bow respectfully and thank the council. She played her role perfectly, smiling and gracious. But Hyun knew her well enough to see the worry in her eyes. Being labeled as helpless was dangerous in a galaxy that still had predators. As the session ended, Throck approached them. The Krelthar warrior towered over both humans, his scales gleaming under the chamber's lights. He looked down at Hyun's uniform with something like amusement. What are these ribbons? Throck asked, pointing at the medals on Hyun's chest. Participation awards? Prizes for peaceful behavior? Hyun met the alien's eyes but said nothing. Behind him, Commander Yoon Kiwoo shifted his weight slightly. Yoon was Hyun's second, another Marine who had been ordered to stay silent and look pretty. The tension was thick enough to cut. They are military decorations, Choi explained. Captain Hyun has served humanity with distinction. Military? Throck laughed, a harsh barking sound. You have no military? You have scared children in costumes. The galaxy is cruel, little humans. You will learn this soon enough. The Krelthar warrior walked away, still laughing. Other warrior species in the council watched him go, and several of them seemed to share his amusement. Hyun heard whispers and translated words. Weak, soft, easy prey. Choi waited until they were back in their private quarters before she spoke freely. I know that was difficult, Captain. Thank you for your restraint. With respect, Ambassador, we made a mistake today. Hyun's voice was controlled but firm. They think we're weak. That's dangerous. They think we're peaceful, Choi corrected. There's a difference. Not to species like the Krelthar. Yoon spoke up for the first time. They see peaceful as weak, and they prey on the weak. Choi sighed and sat down heavily. I know, but Earth's leadership decided this was the best approach. Show them we're not a threat. Build trust. Avoid being seen as another warrior species looking for dominance. And if someone tests us, Hyun asked, then we hope diplomacy works. Choi looked tired suddenly, older than her years. Because if it doesn't, we'll have to show them what we really are. And that might be worse than if we'd been honest from the start. Yoon said nothing. He and Yoon exchanged glances. They both knew the truth. Humans weren't afraid of war. They were afraid of what they became during war. There was a difference, and it was one the galaxy was about to learn. 3 days later, the message came through. A human colony on the outer rim, a place called New Incheon, had gone silent. Long-range sensors showed Krelthar ships in orbit. The colony's last transmission was a distress call that ended abruptly. Hyun was in the council chamber when the news arrived. He watched Vexthar's face as the speaker read the report. The alien looked concerned but not surprised. The council will dispatch negotiators immediately, Vexthar announced. We will speak with the Krelthar leadership and secure the humans' release. This is unfortunate but not uncommon. The Krelthar sometimes raid protected species. We have protocols for this. Choi stood up slowly. What about the colonists? How long will negotiations take? These things require time, Vexthar said gently. Days, perhaps weeks. But the Krelthar will negotiate. They always do. Your people will be returned minus whatever tribute the Krelthar demand. Tribute? Choi's voice was sharp. You mean ransom? A small price for peace, Vexthar said. This is the way of things. Do not worry, Ambassador. Your people are protected under council law. The Krelthar will not harm them so much. Hyun's personal communicator vibrated. He looked down at the screen and read the message from Earth Command. 3 words that changed everything. Marines are go. He looked at Yoon, who had received the same message. His second in command had the slightest smile on his face. Then Hyun looked at Ambassador Choi. She met his eyes and gave the smallest nod. Speaker Vexithar, Choi said clearly, we appreciate the Council's concern. However, Earth will handle this matter directly. The chamber went silent. Vexthar's face showed confusion. Ambassador, you misunderstand. Protected species do not respond to raids with force. That is why you are protected. We negotiate on your behalf. No. Choi's voice was hard as steel now, all diplomacy gone. You misunderstand. Those are our people. Our civilians. Our children. And we're going to get them back. But your classification, Vexthar started, is wrong. Hyun interrupted, stepping forward. Speaker, with all due respect, you don't know us at all. Humans don't fear war. We just prefer not to need it. But when we do... He paused, thinking of every Marine he'd ever served with. When we do, we're very, very good at it. This is madness, Vexthar said. You will provoke the Krelthar. You will start a conflict you cannot win. Hyun smiled, but there was no humor in it. Speaker, the conflict already started. The Krelthar just don't know they've lost yet. He turned and walked out of the chamber, Yoon beside him. Behind them, they heard Choi beginning the formal declarations and legal notifications. But Hyun wasn't listening anymore. He had a job to do. 3,000 colonists were in danger, and the United States Marine Corps was about to show the galaxy what humanity really looked like when you touched their people. Colonel Park Jin-ho looked out at the formation of Marines assembled in the hangar bay of Forward, operating Base Chesty. 2,000 men and women stood at attention, their faces hard and focused. They already knew why they were here. Word traveled fast in the Corps. At ease, Park said, his voice carrying across the massive space. You all know why I called this formation. 72 hours ago, the colony of New Incheon was attacked by hostile alien forces. 3,000 civilians are under threat. Women, children, families. Our families, he paused, letting that sink in. Several Marines shifted their weight, hands clenching. Park continued. The Galactic Council has offered to negotiate. They say it will take weeks, maybe months. They say this is normal. They say we Should wait and let them handle it. Park's jaw tightened. Command said no. The President said no. And I'm saying no. We're Marines. We don't wait while our people suffer. We act. Sergeant Major Lee Hieri stepped forward. She was smaller than most of the Marines, but nobody questioned her authority. She had 30 years in the Corps, and had seen action on 3 continents. Her voice was like gravel when she spoke. Listen up, Lee barked. The aliens think we're soft. They think we're scared. They looked at our movies and our peace protests and decided we're harmless. They made a big mistake. They're about to learn what every tyrant in human history learned the hard way. You don't touch our people, ever. A rumble of agreement went through the formation. Park saw fire in their eyes. Good, they would need it. We ship out in 6 hours, Park announced. Light infantry loadout. Combat gear only. Intel suggests the Krelthar have approximately 500 warriors on the ground, plus orbital support. They're experienced raiders. They're bigger than us, stronger than us, and they've been doing this for centuries. He smiled then, cold and hard. But they've never fought Marines before. The hangar erupted in a battle cry that shook the walls. Park let them have their moment, then raised his hand for silence. Get to your units. Squad leaders, platoon commanders, you have your orders. Check your gear, check your people, and be ready. Dismissed. As the Marines dispersed, Lieutenant Kim Sora gathered her platoon. She was young for an officer, only 26, but she'd earned her bars in the African conflicts. Her platoon trusted her, and that was what mattered. First platoon, listen up, Kim said. We're taking point in the landing. That means we hit the ground first and secure the primary landing zone. Intel shows civilian shelters here, here, and here. She pointed to locations on a holographic map. Our job is to reach them before the Krelthar do anything stupid. Corporal Bei Jinwoo raised his hand. He was one of her best squad leaders, a veteran with experience in urban combat. Lieutenant, what are the rules of engagement? Kim's face hardened. Simple. Any hostile action against civilians or Marines, you are cleared to engage. Command wants prisoners if possible, but not at the expense of our people or theirs. Clear? Crystal, ma'am, Bei said with a savage grin. Private First Class An Suman listened carefully from the back of the group. She was the youngest in the platoon, fresh out of training just 8 months ago. This would be her first real combat. She felt scared but also angry. The images from New Inchin's last transmission showed families running, children crying. That anger would carry her through. Across the base, Major Han Wanho was briefing his pilots. The air support squadron would provide cover and close air support once the ground forces were engaged. The Krelthar ships in orbit are old but functional, Han explained. Our fleet will keep them busy. Your job is to support the Marines on the ground. I don't care if it's danger close. If our people call for fire, you give it to them. Understood? Yes, sir, the pilots responded in unison. An alien observer, a small creature named Pixik from a council science species, watched the preparations with growing confusion. He had been assigned to document humanity's response. What he saw didn't match what the council believed about humans. Excuse me, Pixik said to a passing Marine. Why is everyone so energized? The council will handle negotiations. There is no need for this violence. The Marine, a staff sergeant with scars on his face, stopped and looked down at the alien. You don't get it, do you? Those are our people down there. Marines don't negotiate. We don't wait. We go get our people and bring them home. That's what we do. But surely dialogue, Pixik started. Talk's over, the sergeant said. They attacked humans. Now they deal with Marines. There's a difference. Pixik watched the sergeant walk away and made notes on his datapad. The council needed to know that humans were not reacting the way they were supposed to. There was no fear here, only purpose. In the command center, Colonel Park reviewed the tactical plans with his officers. Captain Hyun had arrived from the council chambers and now stood at Park's side, providing updates on the political situation. The council is not happy, Hyun reported. Vexthar sent 3 messages demanding we stand down. The Krelthar ambassador claims this is a misunderstanding. Several species are threatening sanctions. Do we care? Park asked flatly. Not even a little bit, sir, Hyun said with a slight smile. Good, what's our timeline to New Inchin? 40 hours at maximum burn. The fleet is already moving. Hyun pulled up a star chart. We'll have 4 destroyers for orbital support and 3 transport ships carrying the ground forces. It's not a large force by council standards, but it's what we have. It's enough, Lee said from across the room. Numbers don't win fights. Training does. Discipline does. Knowing what you're fighting for does. We have all 3, Park nodded. Once we're in range, what can we expect? The Krelthar will likely see us coming, Hyun said. They'll either run or stand and fight. Based on Throck's attitude at the council, I'm betting they stand. They think they can take us, let them think it, Park said. Gives us the element of surprise when they realize they're wrong. As the briefing continued, word spread throughout the base. Marines loaded weapons, checked armor, and prepared equipment. In the barracks, soldiers wrote messages to loved ones just in case. Others worked out, burning off nervous energy. Some sat quietly, focused inward, preparing mentally for what was coming. Lieutenant Kim found Corporal Bay cleaning his rifle for the third time. You ready for this? She asked. Bay looked up and nodded. Been ready my whole life, ma'am. This is what we train for. Finally get to do the job for real. Keep your squad tight, Kim said. Watch your fields of fire. The Krelthar are big and tough, but they're not invincible. Aim for center mass, controlled pairs, same as always. What about their size advantage? Bay asked. Kim smiled. Bigger target, easier to hit. 6 hours later, the Marines loaded onto the transport ships. The vessels were military designs built for speed and durability rather than comfort. Rows of seats filled the cargo bays, each Marine strapped in tight. Their gear was stowed overhead, weapons locked and loaded. Private An sat between two other Marines from her squad. The one on her left was a corporal who'd seen action before. He noticed her nervous fidgeting. First time? He asked. Is it that obvious? An replied. You're not throwing up or crying, so you're doing better than I did my first time, the corporal said with a grin. What's your name? An Suman. Listen, Suman, when we hit the ground, stay with your fire team. Do exactly what your team leader says. Don't try to be a hero. Just do your job, watch your sectors, and trust your training. You'll be fine. What if I freeze? An asked quietly. The corporal's face became serious. You won't. You know why? Because when you see those civilians, when you see what the Krelthar have done, you won't be thinking about yourself anymore. You'll be thinking about them. That's what makes Marines different. We don't fight for ourselves. We fight for the people who can't fight. The ships launched and the base grew smaller behind them. In the command ship, Colonel Park watched Earth disappear from the view screen. Sergeant Major Lee stood beside him. Think the Krelthar know we're coming? Lee asked. Probably, Park said. Think they know what's coming? Lee smiled. Not a chance. The fleet jumped to faster than light travel, heading for New Incheon. In the troop compartments, Marines tried to rest. Some succeeded. Others stared at photos of family, reminding themselves why they served. A few prayed, each to their own god or philosophy. Lieutenant Kim walked through her platoon's compartment, checking on her people. She stopped at Private An's seat. How you holding up? Kim asked. Scared, ma'am, An admitted. But also angry. Good, Kim said. Fear keeps you alert. Anger gives you strength. Just remember to control both. Don't let them control you. Yes, ma'am. 40 hours passed in a mix of tension and boredom. The Marines went through final weapons checks, reviewed their assigned sectors, and mentally prepared. When they were 8 hours out, the alarm sounded. All hands, battle stations, the ship's intercom announced. Approaching New Incheon. Enemy vessels detected. Prepare for combat operations. The Marines stood and began final preparations. Armor was secured, weapons were charged, and squad leaders ran through last-minute checks. The nervous energy from before had transformed into focused determination. Colonel Park's voice came over the intercom. Marines, this is it. In a few hours, we'll be on the ground. The Krelthar think they know what's coming. They think they can handle us. They're wrong. Show them what happens when you mess with humanity. Show them what Marines do. Semper Fi, Ura! The battle cry echoed through every compartment. The ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and New Incheon appeared on the view screens. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, green and blue and beautiful, but sensors showed Krelthar ships circling like vultures, and smoke rising from the colony sites below. Contact, the tactical officer reported. Krelthar vessels moving to intercept. Orbital defenses activating. All ships, weapons free, the fleet commander ordered. Clear us a path. The Marines are going in. In the troop compartments, the Marines felt the ship shudder as the battle began. Explosions echoed through the hull. But they didn't flinch. They were ready. 5 minutes to drop, Lieutenant Kim announced to her platoon. Lock and load. It's time to bring our people home. Sergeant Major Lee's words echoed in every Marine's mind as they prepared to drop into combat. They'll learn what every tyrant learns. You don't touch our people, ever. The drop pods launched, carrying Marines toward the surface. The Galactic Council's peaceful humans were going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. The drop pod slammed into the ground hard enough to crack teeth. Lieutenant Kim Sora hit the release and the door blew outward with explosive force. She rolled out into the open air of New Incheon, rifle up and scanning for threats. Around her, 20 more pods crashed down, each spilling out 4 Marines. First platoon formed up in seconds, moving with practiced efficiency. The landing zone was a field outside the main colony, and smoke rose from buildings in the distance. "Sound off," Kim ordered over the squad channel. "First squad, all present," Corporal Bay reported. "Second squad, ready," another voice called. "Third squad, good to go." "Fourth squad, we're up." Kim checked her tactical display. The other platoons were landing at designated points around the colony, forming a perimeter. So far, no contact with the enemy. That would change soon. "Move out," Kim ordered. "Formation Alpha, stay sharp." The platoon advanced toward the colony. They moved in coordinated teams, each covering the other's movement. It was textbook infantry tactics drilled into them until it became automatic. But this was no training exercise. The smoke they saw came from real fires. The bodies they passed were real colonists, killed in the initial attack. Private An Suman saw her first body and felt her stomach turn. It was an older man lying face down in the dirt. The Krelthar had shot him in the back as he ran. She forced herself to look away and focus on her sector. "Contact front," someone called out. 300 meters, multiple hostiles." Kim raised her binoculars and spotted them. 6 Krelthar warriors, each standing nearly 8 feet tall with thick-scaled skin. They were pulling colonists from a building, shoving them roughly towards some kind of transport vehicle. One of the aliens hit a woman who had fallen, and Kim heard the crack of the impact even at this distance. "Bay, take your squad left." "Third squad, right? We'll pin them center." "Fourth squad, hang back and provide overwatch." "On my mark." Kim's voice was calm, professional. Inside she was furious. The Marines moved into position silently. The Krelthar didn't notice them, too focused on their prisoners. They were laughing, making harsh barking sounds that the translators rendered as mockery. One of them held a human child by the arm, dangling the crying girl in the air like a toy. Kim took careful aim. Fire. The first volley dropped 3 Krelthar instantly. The Marines' rifles were designed to punch through body armor, and while the Krelthar had thick scales, they weren't thick enough. The aliens jerked and fell, confusion on their reptilian faces. The surviving 3 Krelthar roared and returned fire. Their weapons were powerful but slow. Energy bolts sizzled through the air, missing the Marines who had already shifted position. Bay's squad flanked left and opened up from the side. The crossfire was devastating. 15 seconds after the engagement began, all 6 Krelthar were down. The colonists they had captured scattered, running for cover. Marines moved forward to secure them. "This is 1st Platoon," Kim reported to command. "First contact. 6 enemy KIA, civilians secured. No friendly casualties." "Copy that." Colonel Park's voice came back. "Good work. Continue mission." But the Krelthar had heard the shots. From deeper in the colony, more warriors were coming. Kim saw them on her tactical display, at least 20 contacts moving toward their position. "Defensive positions," Kim ordered. "They're coming to us now." The Krelthar came at a run, roaring battle cries. They were terrifying to look at. Massive creatures with claws and fangs carrying heavy weapons. But they weren't using tactics. They just charged straight ahead, expecting their size and ferocity to win the day. It didn't work against Marines. Corporal Bay's squad caught them in a crossfire. Marines fired in controlled bursts, dropping Krelthar warriors one after another. When the aliens tried to take cover, other squads flanked them. When they tried to charge, Marines fell back in good order, leading them into kill zones. Private An found herself face-to-face with a Krelthar warrior who had gotten through the line. The alien raised its weapon and An fired on instinct. Her shots hit center mass and the creature stumbled. It didn't fall. The Krelthar kept coming and An kept firing. 3 rounds, 4, 5. Finally, the alien collapsed at her feet, its yellow blood pooling on the ground. "You good, Suman?" Her fire team leader called. "I'm good," An said, surprised to find it was true. She wasn't scared anymore. She was focused. The fight lasted less than 10 minutes. When it ended, 22 more Krelthar were dead. The Marines had taken their first casualty, a private with a wounded arm. The corpsman bandaged him up and the Marine refused evacuation. "I can still shoot," The wounded Marine insisted. I'm staying with my squad. Across the colony, similar battles were playing out. 2nd Platoon had engaged Krelthar forces near the eastern shelters. 3rd Platoon was clearing the industrial district. 4th Platoon had found a group of colonists trapped in a school and was holding off repeated enemy attacks while evacuating civilians. In orbit, Major Han Wanho's fighters engaged the Krelthar ships. The alien vessels were larger, but the human fighters were faster and more maneuverable. Han led his squadron in close, targeting the enemy ship's weapon systems with precision strikes. Break left, Han called to his wingman. 3-4, take the engines. 5-6 with me on the bridge. The human fighters danced through enemy fire, their pilots using every trick they'd learned in years of training. The Krelthar ships tried to track them but were too slow. One by one, the enemy vessels went dark, crippled or destroyed. On the ground, the Krelthar war chief Thraknor watched his forces fall back in confusion. This was not what was supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to run or surrender. Instead, they were winning. Bring all warriors to the central position, Thraknor ordered. We will crush them with numbers. But even as he gave the order, Thraknor felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. The humans fought with a coordination and skill that seemed impossible for such a young species. They used their weapons with deadly precision. They moved as if they shared one mind, and they showed no fear, even when facing warriors twice their size. Colonel Park monitored the battle from his command ship. Every engagement was going better than expected. The Krelthar were brave but predictable. They relied on strength and aggression, which worked against species that would panic. But Marines didn't panic. All units converge on the central plaza, Park ordered. The Krelthar are gathering for a last stand. Let's end this. Lieutenant Kim led 1st Platoon through the streets, moving building to building. They found more colonists hiding in basements and shops. Each time, Marines stayed behind to guard them while the rest pushed forward. The colonists looked at their rescuers with gratitude and amazement. Are you really human military? One colonist asked Corporal Bay. The council said humanity didn't have real soldiers. Bay smiled grimly. The council was wrong, ma'am. Now stay here. We'll come back for you when it's safe. The central plaza was a large open area in the heart of the colony. The Krelthar had fortified it, using colonist vehicles as barriers. Thraknor stood in the center with his remaining warriors, about 200 strong. They had hostages, 24 colonists held at gunpoint. Humans. Thraknor's voice boomed across the plaza. Surrender or we kill these ones. Kim looked to Colonel Park on the command channel. Sir? Park's response was immediate. Negative. We do not negotiate with hostage takers. All units prepare for assault. Snipers, you have priority on enemy leaders and any hostile pointing weapons at civilians. Air support, stand by for danger close strikes. We're getting our people out. The Marines moved into position around the plaza. Snipers took up positions in high buildings. Infantry squads covered every exit. Major Han's fighters circled overhead, ready to strike. This is your final warning, Thraknor called out. Leave now or these humans die. Sergeant Major Lee's voice came over the all-hands channel. Marines, you know what to do. On the colonel's mark, we hit them with everything. Fast, precise, overwhelming. Trust your training. Trust each other. Let's bring our people home. All units, Park said calmly. Execute. The plaza erupted in coordinated violence. Snipers fired simultaneously, dropping every Krelthar who held a weapon near a hostage. Infantry rushed in from multiple directions, their fire perfectly timed to avoid hitting civilians. Fighters screamed overhead, launching missiles at the Krelthar defensive positions. The battle was chaos, but within that chaos was perfect order. Marines moved with purpose, each knowing exactly what they needed to do. They had trained for this scenario 100 times. Room clearing, hostage rescue, urban combat. It was what they did. Private An found herself charging across the plaza with her squad. She saw a Krelthar warrior turning his weapon toward a colonist family. She fired without thinking, her shots hitting the alien in the throat. The Krelthar dropped and the family ran to safety behind Marine lines. Corporal Bay kicked down a door where hostages were held. 2 Krelthar guards turned toward him, but Bay's fire team was faster. Both aliens fell before they could shoot. Bay quickly cut the zip ties binding the colonists' hands. Come on, Bay said. Stay low and follow me. We're getting you out. Lieutenant Kim moved through the plaza with smooth efficiency, directing her platoon. She shot 1 Krelthar, threw a grenade at another group and called in air support on a fortified position, all while keeping track of every member of her platoon. Training and adrenaline merged into something almost like instinct. In less than 3 minutes, the battle was over. The Krelthar warriors were dead or dying. The hostages were free. And the Marines were already securing the area and checking on the civilians. Thraknor himself lay wounded, his armor cracked and leaking. Colonel Park stood over him, rifle pointed down. "This is impossible," Thraknor said in disbelief. "You are peaceful. You fear conflict," the council said. "The council was wrong," Park said simply. "We don't fear war. We just know what it costs. But when you touch our people, that calculation changes. You should have left us alone." Thraknor looked around at the fallen warriors, at the humans who had defeated them so completely. "What are you?" "Marines," Park said. "And that's all you need to know." Across the colony, the battle ended just as decisively. In less than 48 hours from landing, the Marines had eliminated the Krelthar presence, rescued nearly all the colonists, and secured the entire area. Human casualties were light, less than 30 wounded and only 2 dead. Krelthar casualties were catastrophic. As medics treated the wounded and Marines began the cleanup, Private An found herself sitting against a wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky but somehow satisfied. She had done her job. She had helped save people. A young colonist girl approached her shyly. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. "Thank you," the girl whispered. "You saved my mommy." An smiled, and suddenly all the fear and doubt from before seemed worth it. "That's what we do," she said softly. "We keep people safe." The girl hugged her, and An hugged back. Around them, other Marines were having similar moments. Colonists thanking their rescuers. Families reunited. Lives saved. Sergeant Major Lee watched it all and nodded in satisfaction. This was what the Corps was about. Not the fighting, not the glory. This. Protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. The Galactic Council had gotten it all wrong. Humans didn't fear war. They feared failing the people they'd sworn to protect. And when those people were threatened, there was no force in the galaxy that could stop Marines from doing their job. The Battle of New Incheon was over. But the real war, the one for humanity's place in the galaxy, was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as the video played. On the massive holographic display, Marines stormed across the plaza of New Incheon. The footage came from Krelthar helmet cameras, showing the battle from the perspective of the warriors who had lost. Council members watched humans move with terrifying precision. They saw coordinated fire teams, flanking maneuvers, and close air support executed with perfect timing. They saw Krelthar warriors, feared throughout the galaxy for centuries, fall one after another to these smaller, supposedly peaceful creatures. When the video ended, the silence stretched for several long moments. Finally, Council Speaker Vexthar spoke, his voice shaken. "How many human casualties?" Captain Hyun Tae-sik stood at attention in his dress uniform. Beside him, Colonel Park Jin-ho waited with the calm patience of a man who had nothing to apologize for. Commander Yoon Ki-woo stood at their back, ready to provide technical details if needed. 2 dead, 28 wounded, Hyun reported. All wounded have returned to active duty. The colonists suffered 43 casualties in the initial attack before we arrived. We lost no civilians during the rescue operation. "And the Krelthar?" another council member asked, a floating creature whose translator made its voice sound hollow. 473 dead, 32 captured, Hyun said flatly. "We did not ask them to attack our colony. We asked them to leave. They refused." Councillor Miravan, representative of a species that had not fought a war in 3,000 years, made a sound of distress. "This is horrifying. The violence, the brutality. How can you call yourself civilized?" Ambassador Choi Nari stepped forward. She had stayed quiet during the video, but now her voice was sharp and clear. "Counselor, they attacked our children. Our families. What did you expect us to do? Ask them nicely to stop?" "Negotiate," Miravan insisted. "As civilized species do. Violence is never the answer." "Tell that to the 43 dead colonists," Colonel Park said, speaking for the first time. His voice was hard. "Tell that to the families who would have been enslaved or killed if we'd waited for your negotiations." The Krelthar delegate, a warrior named Grektar who had replaced the now captured Thraknor, stood reluctantly. "The humans fought with honor," he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him. We expected weakness. We found warriors. The defeat is ours to accept. But this changes everything, Vexthar said. Humanity was classified as a peaceful species. Non-combatant tier. You were under council protection. This action saved 3,000 lives, Hyun interrupted. With respect, Speaker, your classification was wrong. We tried to tell you, but you didn't listen. You let us believe you were harmless, accused another council member, a tall alien with silver skin. Commander Yoon spoke up now. We never said we were harmless. We said we preferred peace. There's a difference. You saw what you wanted to see. You looked at our culture and decided we were weak. You didn't bother to look at our history. Show them, Hyun said quietly. A new set of holographic displays appeared. Images from Earth's history. Ancient warriors, medieval armies, world wars, conflicts across centuries. Then modern military operations, training exercises, tactical manuals. The accumulated knowledge of thousands of years of human warfare. Humans have been fighting since we learned to stand upright, Hyun explained. We've fought over resources, territory, ideas, and survival. We fought each other so much that we became very, very good at it. And then about 100 years ago, we decided we were tired of killing each other. So we stopped, mostly. But the ability never went away, Park added. We didn't forget how to fight. We just chose not to. Until someone gave us a reason. Like attacking our civilians. Vexthar looked at the displays, then back at the humans. Why didn't you tell us this? Why let us believe you were peaceful? Ambassador Choi answered. Because we are peaceful. We don't want war. We don't seek conflict. But peaceful doesn't mean defenseless. It means we choose our battles carefully. The Krelthar chose this battle for us. This sets a dangerous precedent, Miravan said, her voice almost pleading. If all species responded to raids with military force, then raiders would think twice before attacking, Park said bluntly. Counselor, with respect, your system protects the weak by asking the strong to show mercy. That only works if the strong care about mercy. The Krelthar didn't. They saw easy prey and took it. We corrected their misunderstanding. Grektar, the Krelthar delegate, spoke again. The humans speak truth. We believed them weak because you told us they were weak. We attacked because we thought they could not fight back. We were wrong. The shame is ours, but the mistake was yours. The chamber erupted in debate. Some council members agreed that humanity's classification needed to change. Others insisted that violence, no matter how effective, was not the answer. A few species, particularly other warrior races, looked at the humans with newfound respect and perhaps a little fear. Hyun waited for the noise to die down, then spoke clearly. The Galactic Council said humans fear war. You were half right. We do fear war. But not because we can't fight. We fear it because we know exactly what we're capable of when we do fight. We've seen what happens when humans go to war without restraint. We've experienced it ourselves throughout our history. That's why we prefer peace. Then why this display of force? Vexthar asked. Why not let us negotiate? Because negotiations take time, Colonel Park said. And while you negotiate, people suffer. People die. We're not willing to accept that cost. Not when we can do something about it. Commander Yoon pulled up more tactical data. Let me show you the difference in response time. Your negotiation protocol would have taken, according to your own estimates, 3 to 6 weeks. We mobilized in 6 hours. We reached New Incheon in 40 hours. We completed the rescue in 48 hours. In the time it would have taken you to schedule the first negotiation meeting, we had already won. The silence that followed was heavy. Several council members looked uncomfortable. They were beginning to understand the implications. So what do you want? Vexthar asked finally. Full military classification? Permission to respond to future threats with force? We want you to understand us correctly, Hyun said. We're not a warrior species. We don't seek conquest or domination. But we're also not victims waiting for protection. We're something in between. We're humans. And if you threaten our people, we will respond. Not with negotiations, not with sanctions, with Marines. And what are Marines? Asked a council member who hadn't spoken before. A small, furry creature with large eyes. Sergeant Major Lee Hyeri had been standing quietly in the back, but now she stepped forward. She had been on New Incheon during the battle, coordinating defensive positions. Her uniform still showed dust from the colony. Marines are the people you send when everything else has failed, Lee said simply. We're the ones who go into the worst situations and fix them. We're teachers, engineers, warriors, and protectors. We don't want to fight. But we're always ready to. That's what makes us Marines. The small furry creature looked at her thoughtfully. You sound proud of this? I am, Lee said without hesitation. I'm proud to serve with people who put others before themselves, who run toward danger instead of away from it, who would rather die than let innocents suffer. Yeah, I'm proud of that. Another round of debate broke out. This time it was more thoughtful, less panicked. Council members were starting to accept that their understanding of humanity had been fundamentally wrong. Ambassador Choi raised her hand for attention. The council needs to make a decision. Humanity requests reclassification to full member status with appropriate military authority. We're not asking permission to defend our people. We will do that regardless. But we'd prefer to do it within the framework of council law. And if we refuse, Miravan asked, then we'll defend ourselves anyway, Choi said calmly. But it would be better for everyone if we work together. We don't want to be your enemies. We want to be your allies. But allies respect each other's capabilities and boundaries. Vexthar looked around the chamber, reading the mood. This will require a formal vote. The council must decide whether to grant humanity full member status, which includes military responsibilities and authorities. One more thing, Hyun said. We have prisoners. 32 Krelthar warriors who surrendered. What does the council want us to do with them? Grektar answered before anyone else could. Return them to us. We will deal with them according to our laws. They brought shame to our people through their stupidity. They attacked a species they did not understand. This is a grave dishonor. We'll return them, Park said. But understand this. If any Krelthar or any other species attacks human settlements again, the response will be the same. We protect our own. Understood, Grektar said, and there was respect in his voice now. The Krelthar will not make this mistake again. The council vote was scheduled for the next day. As the humans left the chamber, they were stopped by several alien delegates. Some wanted to apologize. Others wanted to learn more about human military capabilities. A few warrior species asked about possible military exchanges or training partnerships. Captain Hyun handled each conversation with diplomatic skill, but inside he felt satisfied. The galaxy was finally seeing humanity clearly, not as weak prey, not as fearsome conquerors, but as what they really were. People who wanted peace but were prepared for war. That night in their quarters, the human delegation gathered. Ambassador Choi poured drinks for everyone, even though they were all exhausted. To the Marines, Choi said, raising her glass, who showed the galaxy what humanity really is. To the colonists, Park countered, who we fight for. They drank together, and for a moment the weight of what they'd accomplished settled over them. They had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. The council would never underestimate them again. What do you think will happen tomorrow? Hyun asked. They'll vote yes, Hyun said confidently. They have to. They saw what happens when they get humanity wrong. They won't risk getting it wrong again. And after that? Lee asked. After that, Ambassador Choi said thoughtfully, we figure out how to be both peaceful and powerful, how to be ready for war while working for peace. It's what humans have always struggled with. Now we get to figure it out on a galactic scale. Colonel Park smiled. Well, at least we've got Marines. Whatever challenges come next, I'm confident we can handle them. The next day the vote was overwhelming. Humanity was granted full council membership with complete military authority. They were reclassified as a Tier 1 military species, a category reserved for the galaxy's most capable defenders. When the results were announced, Vexithar approached the human delegation privately. I owe you an apology, he said. We saw what we expected to see, not what was really there. It was a dangerous mistake. Apology accepted, Hyun said. Just don't make the same mistake with other species. Sometimes the quiet ones are quiet because they're disciplined, not because they're weak. Vexthar nodded slowly. A lesson learned. At least it was learned before more were hurt. Tell me, Captain, what would humans have done if we had tried to stop you from rescuing your colonists? Hyun met the alien's eyes steadily. We would have gone anyway. You would have learned the same lesson, just under worse circumstances. I thought so, Vexthar said. I'm glad we didn't have to find out. Welcome to the council, humanity. Truly welcome this time. As they left the chamber, Lee turned to Park with a grin. Think they finally get it? They're starting to, Park said. Give them time. They'll figure out what we've always known. What's that? Peaceful doesn't mean harmless. It means we choose peace because we know exactly what war costs. And when we're forced to pay that cost, we make damn sure it's worth it. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Incheon, and the galaxy had changed. The council chambers, once a place where humans were barely tolerated, now welcomed them as equals. But more than that, humans were being asked for help. General Choi Do-yun stood in the Council Defense Command Center, studying a holographic star map. He was the first human ever appointed to such a high position in the galactic military structure. Around him, alien officers from dozens of species worked at their stations, coordinating the defense of hundreds of worlds. "General, we have another request," his aide reported, a blue-skinned alien named Korvan who had learned to work with humans quickly. "The Veltar system wants Marine advisors for their planetary defense force." "That's the 4th request this week," Choi said, making a note. "What happened to the species that thought we were too violent?" "They watched the training footage from the Krelthar exchange program," Korvan said with what might have been amusement. "Now everyone wants their forces to train like Marines." On a colony world near the frontier, Captain Kim Sora ran a joint training exercise. Her platoon, now expanded into a company, worked alongside alien soldiers from 3 different species. They were practicing building clearance, and the aliens were struggling with the coordination required. No, Kim called out, stopping the exercise. "You're moving like individuals. You need to move as a unit. Watch." She signaled her Marines, and they flowed through the building like water. Each Marine knew exactly where the others were, covered each other's movements, and cleared rooms with smooth efficiency. The alien soldiers watched in fascination. "How do you do that?" asked a Veltar soldier, a tall insect-like creature with multiple eyes. "How do you know where each other is without looking?" "Training," Kim said. "And trust. We've worked together so long that we don't need to look. We know you'll get there, but it takes time. Let's try again." The aliens tried the drill once more. They were better this time, starting to understand the rhythm of coordinated movement. Kim nodded in approval. They were learning. At a council military academy, Sergeant Major Lee Hyeri taught a class on small unit tactics to officer candidates from across the galaxy. The classroom was full of different species, all listening intently as Lee explained human military doctrine. "The most important thing to understand," Lee said, "is that equipment doesn't win battles. Training helps. Numbers can matter. But what really wins battles is knowing what you're fighting for. A soldier who fights for pay can be bought. A soldier who fights for glory can be discouraged. But a soldier who fights to protect others, who believes in something bigger than themselves, that soldier is unbeatable." A student raised a tentacle. "But Sergeant Major, humans also get paid. You also receive recognition for your service. How is it different?" Lee smiled. "We do get paid, but that's not why we serve. We serve because somewhere, someone needs protection. Somewhere, innocents are in danger, and we've decided that's our job, to be the ones who stand between the helpless and the darkness. The pay is nice, but it's not the point. The point is the mission. The point is bringing everyone home safe." The students thought about this, many of them taking notes. Lee had given this speech a dozen times now, and it always seemed to resonate. The galaxy was learning what made human military forces so effective. It wasn't technology or tactics alone. It was purpose. Meanwhile, the Krelthar had become some of humanity's strongest supporters. After the humiliation at New Incheon, they had requested human military advisors to reform their own forces. What started as pride-swallowing necessity had become genuine respect. War Chief Grektar worked directly with human officers now, learning new tactics and training methods. He watched a group of Marine recruits run through an obstacle course, pushing themselves to exhaustion and then beyond. "Your young ones are weak compared to Krelthar youth," Grektar observed. "Yet they become formidable warriors. How?" The Marine training instructor, a grizzled veteran named Staff Sergeant Nam Junho, grinned. "Because we break them down and build them back up stronger. Not just their bodies, their minds, their spirits. We teach them that the person next to them is more important than they are, that the mission matters more than individual glory. That pain is temporary, but the core is forever." "Krelthar warriors are taught to be strong as individuals," Grektar said thoughtfully. "Perhaps this is our weakness. Strength and unity," Nam said. "That's the secret. One Marine is dangerous. A fire team is deadly. A platoon is unstoppable. We're not stronger than you individually, but together, We're something more than the sum of our parts. Grektar began implementing similar training philosophies with Krelthar recruits. The results were immediate and impressive. Krelthar warriors who learned to fight as coordinated units became far more effective than those who relied on individual prowess alone. Back at Council Defense Command, General Choi received an alert that made his blood run cold. Deep space sensors had detected a fleet of unknown vessels approaching Council space. Their energy signatures matched nothing in the database, and they were moving fast. "Get me all available intelligence," Choi ordered, "and prep the rapid response fleet. I want to know what we're dealing with." Within hours, the picture became clear and terrifying. The Devourers, a species that had terrorized the Outer Rim for generations, were moving toward the core worlds. They were a plague, consuming everything in their path. Entire civilizations had fallen before them. The Council convened an emergency session. Panic was visible on many faces. The Devourers had always stayed in deep space before, content to raid isolated colonies. A full assault on Council space was unprecedented. "We need to evacuate the border worlds," Councillor Miravan said, her voice shaking. "We cannot fight them." "The hell we can't," General Choi said flatly. He stood at the military briefing station, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "We can fight them. We just need to do it smart." "The Devourers have destroyed fleets 10 times larger than ours," Vexthar said. "How can we possibly stand against them?" "By using strategy instead of just throwing ships at them," Choi responded. He pulled up tactical displays. "They're strong, but they're predictable. They use overwhelming force and expect enemies to scatter. What if we don't scatter? What if we hit them where they're weak, instead of meeting them head-on?" Ambassador Choi Nari, now a senior diplomatic advisor, supported him. "General Choi is right. The Council has always responded to the Devourers with retreat or last-ditch defense. What if we take the fight to them?" "Suicide," another Council member said flatly. "Or victory," Captain Hyun Taesik said. He was now General Choi's chief of staff, coordinating between human forces and the broader Council military. "We've run simulations. With proper coordination and modern tactics, we can hurt them, maybe stop them." The debate raged for hours. Finally, with the Devourer fleet growing closer every day, the Council made their decision. General Choi Do-yun would lead a coalition defense force. He would have full authority to deploy forces as he saw fit, and at the center of that force would be human Marines, backed by allies from across the Council. "This is your chance to prove that human methods work on a galactic scale," Vexthar said privately to Choi. "If you fail—" "If I fail, we all die anyway," Choi said. "But I'm not planning to fail." The fleet assembled quickly. Human warships, Krelthar battlecruisers, Veltar carriers, and vessels from 20 other species. It was the largest combined force the Council had ever put together. And for the first time, humans were in command. Captain Kim's company was assigned to lead the ground forces. If the fleet engagement went well, they would need to clear Devourer installations on several moons. If it went badly, they would be humanity's last line of defense. "How you feeling about this, Captain?" Corporal Bei Jinwoo asked as they prepared their gear. "Scared," Kim admitted. "The Devourers are no joke, but we've got good people, good training, and a better plan than just charging in. That counts for something." Corporal An Suman, now wearing the chevrons of a sergeant, checked her squad's equipment. She'd come a long way from the scared private who'd landed at New Incheon. Combat had forged her into a solid NCO, one her Marines trusted. "Squad leaders, listen up," An called. "I know the Devourers have a scary reputation, but remember New Incheon? Everyone said the Krelthar were unbeatable in ground combat. We proved them wrong. We're Marines. We don't lose because we refuse to give up. Got it?" "Ora," her squad responded, and she heard real confidence in their voices. Sergeant Major Lee moved through the staging area, checking on everyone. She stopped at Private Kang Minho's position. He was fresh out of training, about to see his first action. "You ready for this, son?" Lee asked. "I think so, Sergeant Major," Minho said, trying to sound confident. "I mean, I'm scared, but I'm ready." "Good," Lee said. "Fear means you're paying attention. Just remember your training and trust your team. You'll do fine." The fleet jumped to the interception point, a stretch of space where they could force the Devourers to engage on human terms. General Choi had chosen the battlefield carefully, near a nebula that would limit the Devourers' sensor advantage. "All ships, battle stations," Choi ordered. "Remember the plan. Coordinated strikes, hit and fade tactics. Don't let them pin you down. We're not trying to win by brute force. We're trying to win by making them fight our way instead of theirs." The Devourer fleet arrived exactly when predicted. They were massive ships, dark and menacing, advancing in a wall of overwhelming force. It was exactly what the Council fleets had faced before and failed to stop. But this time was different. The Coalition fleet didn't meet them head-on. Instead, human destroyers and fast Veltar frigates struck from the flanks while the main fleet pulled back. The Devourers pursued and found themselves in a crossfire from hidden positions in the nebula. "Now," Choi ordered. "Heavy weapons. Focus fire." The combined fleet's largest ships opened up simultaneously, concentrating their fire on individual Devourer vessels instead of spreading damage across the enemy formation. It was simple tactics, but the Council had never coordinated well enough to use it effectively before. Under human leadership, they executed it perfectly. One Devourer ship exploded, then another. The enemy fleet, confused by tactics they hadn't encountered before, began to lose cohesion. They tried to reform, but the Coalition fleet kept moving, never staying still long enough for the Devourers to target them effectively. On the ground forces transport ship, the Marines watched the space battle on displays. They saw human tactical doctrine being executed on a massive scale, saw alien ships working together like a single organism, saw the supposedly unbeatable Devourers losing for the first time in generations. "That's General Choi up there," Kim told her company, "showing the galaxy how it's done. When it's our turn, we do the same. We show them that Marines don't lose. We show them why humanity deserves to be here." The space battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet was shattered. They'd lost half their ships and retreated in disorder. The Coalition had won, but the job wasn't finished. Devourer ground installations on the moons needed to be cleared to prevent them from regrouping. That's where the Marines came in. Kim's company dropped onto the largest moon alongside Krelthar warriors and soldiers from 6 other species. They advanced together, using the combined arms tactics that humans had taught them. When they met Devourer ground forces, the fighting was brutal but one-sided. The Devourers were strong, but they'd never faced enemies who fought with this level of coordination. Sergeant An led her squad through a Devourer strong point. She moved the way Lee had taught her, the way Kim had shown her, the way Marines had moved for centuries. Her squad followed her perfectly, and the mixed species fire team supporting them kept pace. It was beautiful in its way, different species and cultures moving as one. "Clear," An reported as the last Devourer position fell. "Moon secure." Across the battle space, similar reports came in. Every objective was taken. Every Devourer installation destroyed or captured. The Coalition had won completely, decisively, and with minimal casualties. When the fleet returned to Council space, they were met with celebration. Species that had lived in fear of the Devourers for generations finally felt safe, and they knew who to thank. General Choi was promoted to Supreme Commander of Council Defense Forces. Captain Kim was given command of the new Galactic Rapid Response Force. Sergeant Major Lee was tasked with training the next generation of Council military leaders. And ordinary Marines, soldiers who'd just been doing their jobs, became heroes across 100 worlds. In a quiet ceremony, Private Kang Minho received his first combat ribbon. Corporal Bay was promoted to sergeant, and Sergeant An received the Navy Cross for her actions on the moon, becoming one of the youngest recipients in Marine Corps history. But the biggest change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that humans weren't special because they were stronger or tougher. They were special because they understood something fundamental about war and peace. Ambassador Choi Nari stood before the full council and explained it one final time. "We don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love peace enough to defend it. We don't seek conflict, but we're always prepared for it. That's the balance humanity offers the galaxy. The strength to protect peace, not the weakness that invites war." "You have taught us well," Vexthar said. "The galaxy is safer because humanity is here." On Earth at Marine Corps Base Quantico, a new class of recruits stood at attention. Their drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Nam Junho, paced in front of them. "You are about to become part of something bigger than yourselves," Nam said. "You're about to become Marines. That means something different now than it did a year ago. Now you're not just defending Earth. You're defending the entire galaxy. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, all counting on you to be ready when they need you." He paused, looking at each scared, determined face. "Can you handle that responsibility?" "Yes, sir," they shouted back. "I can't hear you. Yes, sir." "That's what I thought. Now let's get to work. We've got a galaxy to protect. In the council chambers, a new motto was added to the Defense Forces Charter. 3 words in English because the language didn't matter as much as the meaning. 3 words that every species now understood. Semper Fidelis. Always faithful. The Galactic Council had said humans feared war. They were right in a way, but what the Council finally understood was that humans didn't fear war because they were weak. They feared it because they knew exactly what they were capable of when peace failed. And now, 6 months after New Incheon, the entire galaxy knew it too. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. As Marines, the job would never be finished. There would always be new threats, new challenges, new people who needed defending. But for the first time in galactic history, those people had hope, because they knew that somewhere on distant worlds and ships across space, Marines stood ready, always faithful, always Marine, and that made all the difference.